Hi everyone, and welcome to this new episode of B2B Insiders podcast. My name is David Costa Lima, and I'm here today with my co-founder, the B2B Insiders co-founder, Gabriel Barboza. And today we have a really special guest joining us, Pierre Herubel. Correct me if I'm not pronouncing it in the right way. Pierre is someone that actually we have been following for a long time here on LinkedIn, and he has a really specific way of share content, share value about B2B, about thought leadership. And that's the reason we decided to invite him today to join in this conversation about, content, positioning, and everything about B2B marketing, as we all know. So that's it. Gabriel?
Hi everyone. So thank you so much, Pierre, for being here with us. So today we'll be exploring topics such as the process for creating content that is, impactful and works for your audience, creating content for LinkedIn as well. And we are going to speak a bit about the difference between the marketing funnel and sales funnel. There's a clear distinction between those two. Sometimes it creates a bit of confusion, especially when people try to kill the funnel. But first, let's dive in and introduce our guest. So Pierre, thank you so much. Welcome to B2B Insiders.
Hey, thanks for the invitation, and hello to everyone who is listening to the podcast. All right, so I'm French, but I've been living in Asia for 8 years. So if you are in Brazil right now, we are really far away, almost across the world. I used to be a diplomat, actually. I used to work for a French embassy in Thailand. So that's why I arrived here 8 years ago. I was in charge of communication there, which has a lot in common with marketing in general, actually, as well, because you have to do communication, so you have to understand your audience, who you are talking to. You have positioning as well, but it's easier to have positioning when you are representing France, because the positioning is already done. It's already clear where is France, what is France, the values, cultural values, educational values as well. And you have to also promote, because I was in charge of communication, like promoting activities, promoting bilateral cooperation between the two countries. So that was very interesting. I wanted to be a diplomat at first and to pursue this career, but instead I did a 180-degree change. I went for the entrepreneurship journey instead. Why? Because deep inside, I thought I want to build my own thing. I think most entrepreneurs are driven by that. And so after that, I become a freelancer. I was doing growth marketing freelancing. I was doing mainly Facebook ads in 2017-18, and Facebook ads. It's really what taught me how to use my own money to actually generate performance. And there are a lot of marketers who started with drop shipping. They did e-commerce with Facebook ads, and I see that a lot of people who started with drop shipping with Facebook ads and spending their own money, they understand something about marketing, that it's you need to do a lot of experimentation. You need to follow this experimentation, analyze the results, and then iterate. So this adventure as a freelancer in Facebook ads, it taught me a lot about marketing. Then I continued. I created my own agency with a co-founder in 2021. Then we went from $0 to $1 million of revenue in 14 months with we were selling what we called Commando. So Commando was a rapid experimentation. So basically, you are a startup, or you are a big company that is launching a startup inside the company. What we were doing is we were testing a lot of channels like Facebook, LinkedIn, emailing, Google Ads, really fast. And at the end, we tell you, okay, this is working, this is not working, you should go this direction. And when we created this company, we were doing mainly content and social selling actually to sell this service, this offer for us. So that's where I saw a shift between growth marketing and organic content marketing. And I saw step by step we were having more performance with this content marketing instead of growth marketing. So that's where I went. That's when I went from growth to content marketing. Then we sold the company in 2023, so last year, yeah. And since then, I've been a solopreneur. So now I have a course about content marketing. I also have a newsletter and a paid newsletter. And I also do consulting and coaching for mainly B2B startups and B2B businesses that want to do content marketing. So mainly on LinkedIn, newsletter, and YouTube. Those are the 3 best performing right now. And for newsletter, I use Substack. We can talk about it again after. And now, I'm focused on selling the course and growing the business this way as a solopreneur.
Yeah, that's amazing. Very interesting to know your path. As I've said, there's a huge shift, career shift there, and interesting to see how that background can actually connect with content creation, marketing, and growth. So super interesting. So throughout our conversation, we can dive a little bit deeper. So you've spoken about how in France has already a positioning, right? So it's easier. Like you don't have to. You can already just start creating content, right? But let's say you start something from scratch, right? Like what is your high level process before you start content creation? How do you structure this beginning, this initial phase of breaking into the actual tactic content creation itself?
Yeah. So the first thing for anyone who is listening is to understand really what is positioning before actually trying to create the positioning. So there are 2 elements in positioning. The first one is the desired positioning, is how do you want to be perceived, okay? The second one is how the market actually perceives you. So those are 2 different elements, correct? Like it's imagine you are someone who wants to be perceived as generous, but every time it's time to pay the bill, like you go to toilet and you never here to pay the bill. You see, your desired positioning is to be generous, but how people perceive you is like, oh, this guy is not generous at all. He always leaves when we need to pay the bill. So this is an example to explain really what is positioning. It's how you want to be perceived, how people perceive you. And what matters the most, obviously, it's how people perceive you, because it's them that will actually buy at the end. And there is this manga, I don't remember how it's called. I think it's Death Note. And when you write something inside a book, it magically appears in real life. Or people think like when they will write something on their slide, like a strategic slide, oh, our positioning is we are fast, we are forward thinking, innovative. They write it in the slide and then they think it will magically appear, right? But that's really the difference between desired positioning, which is important. So you need to have a positioning statement. You need to say who is your target audience and what you represent for this audience, what problem you are solving, and how you are solving it differently from the competition, so your point of view. So this is your positioning statement. But then what will turn this into a reality is not writing it on the slide, it's actually your messaging. So how you will communicate to your audience and to your ICP, so ideal customer profile, with consistency, with repetition as well. Because if you don't repeat the information, if you just saying one time and then change the next week, change between the different platforms and so on, you cannot be positioned in the mind of your customer because there is no repetition. So the difference between the desired positioning and the perception of your audience is really the messaging and how many times you repeat the same messages over and over and over. So based on this, the two things you need to create your positioning is first a positioning statement, and second, you need a messaging strategy to make this positioning become a reality. And we can talk a bit more about each of the points, but yeah, that's really the introduction about positioning. And sorry for the metaphors and the examples who are really out of the scope.
No, I think it's great, and I really like the what you said about the perception, the market perception, and the consistency about repeating the same thing. It's really important, and when we produce content, usually our perception about our stuff it's really different than how people perceive. So there's a saying that's quite nice. It's like when you start to get really, I don't know if that's the right word in English, but like annoyed about repeating the same thing, it's exactly that moment that the audience start to notice that you're talking to them. So you need to repeat, you need to be kind of consistent. Like, and for you that you're doing over and over and over, it's going to be like, wow, but I'm just saying the same thing again. But yeah, you need to, because right now we are fighting for attentions, right? So everyone is consuming content in every single way that we can imagine. And yeah, based on your experience, like dealing with like projects and companies, can you see sometimes that people or companies, they want to have a desired positioning, but that's actually not the reality, and then you need to like make them look to inside. It's not something that you just choose. You need to be. How is this process to actually align the reality with something that sometimes is just on the mind of the founder? You know,
like to make it from a founder idea to reality. I was changing the mic. Is it better now?
I think it is right now. Yeah.
Okay. So I had to fix something. So your question was how to turn what the founders want to achieve in his mind to the reality, right?
Yeah, and then if you see sometimes like the founder has something in mind, and then when you're gonna actually look to the company, it's not actually matching. So it's something that he wants to achieve, but that's not the reality of his company. It's not the actual repositioning of the company. How do you balance that?
So the very first thing is you need to be clear on what you want to do, because if it's not even clear for you, it's impossible that it gets clear for the audience. So it needs to be so clear that you can. For me, if I cannot do a design or an infographic about it, that means it's not clear for me. You see what I mean? But it needs to be so clear that you can explain it to anyone, anywhere, all the time. If you have to say something like, oh, sorry, you are not my target audience, I cannot explain to you, that means it's not clear. You have to make it so simple that, imagine one day you are in an elevator and you have 1 minute to pitch your business and your positioning to someone. You need to be able to do it. So when it's like, I would say, like most of the founder who don't make positioning a reality is because they don't even understand what they are doing, or sometimes it's because they have the shiny object syndrome. Like they have an opportunity, they follow it, they create a business, but then they see, oh, there is this new crypto trend, or there is this new NFT, or this new AI trend. I want to add some keywords to jump on the trend, stuff like that. And this is where you get like it's getting blurry. You see why it's getting blurred. So that's the two elements where I see that founders, they struggle between what they want and what actually happen. And the last one, it's really about the discipline and consistency for me. But this is not really about marketing. It's more about, as a founder or even as a marketer, your work ethic and the way you actually, are you patient, for example, when you launch an experiment or messaging campaign. Let's say you do a new messaging across all your channels. Maybe after 2 weeks, do you think like, oh, I need to change already? If you are like that, you are not patient enough. You need to really be consistent and patient. So those are the three main points that make a founder like struggle to make his vision become a reality, in my opinion.
Cool. And then you mentioned that LinkedIn, newsletter, and YouTube is pretty much the channels that you're using to produce content and to explore this content market nowadays, right? So can you pass through a little bit, once you have the position, once it's clear in your mind, how do you work in your content creation? How do you actually structure? How do you choose the topics? Do you have like a methodology that you follow? How do you actually choose what kind of content and how you're going to publish it?
Yeah. So before creating content, you need to have your business strategy and marketing strategy very clear. So it's not only positioning, it's really about positioning, of course, but also your messaging. What are you saying? The ideal customer profile as well, the audience, the offer as well. Because if your offer is not good, if it doesn't bring a clear outcome and fix a specific problem, a painful problem, your content doesn't really matter, except if you want to become famous, get followers. But if you don't have a clear offer, you should not start creating a content strategy. But let's say everything is clean, it's perfect already. So you have to create your content strategy now. And this is what I'm teaching in my course, really. First, you need to have what I call content pillars. I think many people call it content pillars, actually. So it's basically the main topics and the subtopics that you want to talk about. This will be like your lighthouse that you can always follow, so you don't get lost and you actually create content consistency. You see, for the past 2 years, I did a small pivot from growth marketing, as I said, to content marketing, but I did it like slowly and steadily, and I've always been talking about the same topics. This is because I created my content pillars and I follow them, and every time I write something, I ask myself, does it match one of my content pillars? You see what I mean? So this is really what you need. And then you also need the content plan. So content plan, briefly, how to create that. You should analyze your customer buying journey. The question is why your audience buy, how they buy, and when. Okay. Most people, they focus mainly on why, like pain points, objectives, but they forget about the how. So who is involved in the buying committee, champions, buying checklists, all those stuff that are very important in B2B. You need to identify this, research it, and pinpoint every step. And then you need to adapt your content plan to this buying journey. Because if you create content out of the blue, like, oh yeah, today I will talk about this topic, tomorrow this topic, and you don't follow the customer buying journey, maybe it's useless. What I suggest instead is to list all the steps that they go through and create content for each step. You see what I mean? So this makes it easier to create a content plan. So content pillars, content plan, and the next step after that is content creation, really.
Nice. So question about the content creation, and you've spoken about the messaging being really clear, right? That you can actually tell anyone. And how to, like, if you are dealing with a particular ICP, and in B2B, many times the ICP is very technical, right? So, and sometimes if there are terms that are not kind of those technical terms that your ICP is relates to every day, then, maybe he's not going to connect to your solution. That is a technical solution. So how for those two things to connect, like to be able to speak about a technical solution, but in a very, very clear and easy way, like you have said, that almost anybody could understand, and actually being able to condense that like kind of depth of that kind of content into very tactical pieces of content, such as the infographics, the content for social, and so on.
Yeah. Well, honestly, it's easier for me because I talk about marketing and content marketing. So, I know that my topic is not that technical, so I don't have all those questions, but I help my clients who have technical companies like fintech or companies that are working on the blockchain with Web3 specific keywords, jargons, also like industrial companies, you see. And the question, most of the time they go on LinkedIn. So the question is, how do you actually create content that will be engaging enough so you get engagement and then traction, impressions, and then you have more people discovering you? So the way I see it is inside the content pillars that I explained, you have a different variety of content pillars. You have one content pillar that is really specific and that is linked to your solution. And then you have other content pillars where you have more room for broader topics or topics that are more related to the trends, to the news. And this way, I'm able, at least for my clients, I'm able to incorporate the messaging, the technical messaging inside the news and the broad content. You also can use case studies. So case studies is a great way to explain in really simple words what you are doing, even if you are an industrial company and you are selling only to big B2B companies or factories for like 10 million plus. Your audience is on LinkedIn, so you can create case studies on how you helped other clients. You can also do interviews. You have a lot of different topics and formats to play with. So you really need to change to have a variety of content pillars and variety of formats. Those are the two main points.
Based on that, we have been creating content on LinkedIn, me and Gabriel, I think for 2 years pretty much. And I think you are pretty much on the same time. How long have you been creating content on LinkedIn?
I started in January 2022.
Okay, so it's pretty much not the same. So have you noticed that recently there's a lot of like people creating content, but only focus on engagement, not necessarily in past content or to share their offer. So that's something that you said, like, oh, if you don't have a clear offer, if you don't have clear positioning, it's just for engagement. Have you noticed that something like that it's happening on LinkedIn recently? And something that we've been calling here as like meme-led growth, that just like using memes and memes and memes. So the first thing is if you have been noticed that as well, because I think in Brazil at least we have been, and how do you if you consider that as well inside a content strategy for a company, like memes or something like a bit more like informal. Do you actually consider, how do you handle that?
So the trends that I've noticed on LinkedIn, it's obviously there are more and more people coming and posting, publishing, so there is more competition. So there is a need to be maybe creative and to add new formats and so on to try to stand out. And at the same time, LinkedIn is also a bit an echo chamber sometimes. And when a trend pops, it's like everyone tries to copy it because they see, oh, a big creator did that, I'm going to do it again. And that's how like some bubbles they take place on LinkedIn. So as you said, the memes, but not only that, like the infographics that I started a bit, this bubble. But also like you have a new trend, which is like it's half B2B, half B2B. Half B2B, half B2C, like solopreneur founder that also talks about themselves and their life. This is mainly what is happening on LinkedIn and YouTube as well. For example, on YouTube, you have the vlog that happens a lot in B2B now. And you even have a trend right now. It's you take the thumbnail of your YouTube and you write POV, point of view. And this comes from B2C. This comes from creators. So there is a kind of a merge between B2C and B2B. And this creates some stuff interesting and some stuff are a bit annoying because it's not it's not serious enough. But it really depends on what you want to do. And you should not be like trend hopping. What I suggest instead and I've said it already, is to have a variety of formats. So if you see that memes are working well, yeah, you can add like 2 per month, but don't start like doing every day, because then you get addicted to this. And then when the trend is over, you're like, okay, no, what should I do? For example, my content grew a lot with infographics, but I still do normal image, pictures, carousels. I'm trying videos as well. So yeah, you need a mix like that. It's safer, honestly. More
Yeah,
safe.
and also there's you have to take care of the tone of voice of your brand, right? Because depending on, like, if you're, let's say, I don't know, in corporate investing, or I don't know, oil, like there's like a certain tone of voice that you, and you can maybe try to differentiate your tone of voice from the competition. You don't have to be boring. David has a saying that is, B2B doesn't have to be boring, but it's also it also doesn't have to be too cool, in a sense, right? Like you have to, yeah, like you have to there's like a certain threshold that you kind of have to respect, right? um like, how do you think that is an interesting way to be able to follow some of those trends and kind of be part of the conversation while still respecting your tone of voice?
Yeah. So this is something that I learned in politics, diplomacy, and so on. The keyword is not it's not tone of voice, which it's very important, but something comes before tone of voice is your posture. So how do you want to be perceived, once again? And when you are in politics, for example, if you work for an embassy or for the state, when you go to an event, you need to be perceived, so in some way that you represent the government, for example. So you cannot like be too serious. Otherwise, if you do a speech, no one will listen to you. But you also have a threshold that you cannot go beyond. You cannot be like too cool as well. So you really need to think about this posture, and it's easier online because you can control it. You can control the post you put, the videos you put, and you should also be let's say authentic. Don't try to fake it too much. But what is important is to decide on the posture, how you want to be perceived, and then stay on this posture. And if your posture is coherent and consistent across years, people, they feel like they know you and they know what they can expect from you. And depending on the posture that you choose, you can actually launch different kind of businesses. I give you an example. If you have a posture of a reporter, journalist, you're always talking about the businesses of others, okay? You're always commenting others and so on. Here it's harder to launch a business. Why? Because you always talk about others, but not about yourself and what you are building. So your audience will not perceive you as a builder or as someone that can help you to build their company. You see what I mean? So you will be kind of stuck in this posture of, oh, I'm always talking about others, I'm just a journalist, and it's really hard to get out of this posture. But in contrary, if you are like doing a lot of build in public, you do an email campaign, you share the statistics, you launch a new company, you give your monthly recurring revenue, and then you give a lot of details about what you're doing. Now you are perceived, your posture is a builder, you are perceived as a builder. So it's easier to sell to others. They will feel like, okay, this person can help me to build. So first you need to think about this posture and then adapt your tone of voice. As you said, this is very important. Tone of voice, and also what you're talking about, the way you talk about it, and so on. And I think no one is really talking about posture, but that's a really important aspect of content.
Especially right now that videos will increase more and more. At least it looks like, because LinkedIn is trying to focus on that as well.
Yeah.
And that's really good what you said about the being authentic about your content, about your positioning. And this is something that actually me and Gabriel we do discuss quite often, because we do share lots of content, and we have this like persona that we want to teach. We want to actually make people to implement on their strategy, and then we try to share how to. And sometimes it's quite frustrating, because you actually produce a content that it requires time and you need to actually structure it, and then someone comes with a meme and then wow, gets lots of like shares, and then people are like, no, it's amazing. And sometimes you see the person also positioning themselves like, oh, I'm a B2B marketer, but it's like you just post memes, you know what I mean? Like you're not
And
actually...
there's almost like a FOMO, right? Like you look at that and say, wow, that person is like growing so much, but like what they are actually teaching, right?
So
Yes,
it's
I saw
a
that.
bit, but yeah.
Yeah, it's popping, but yeah, it's why not? If it works for them, it can be a good strategy. Why not?
Yeah.
Oh, and then one thing that I also really talk with Gabriel, it's like that producing content for me at least, it's like something that it's a study. I'm studying, I'm actually learning, and the consequence of that is actually to publish a content. So it's not quite smart to just be repurposing memes or whatever. But the thing is, jumping into the infographics, and actually I heard another term for that kind of specific infographic that you do produce a lot, and then we do a bit as well, which is a one pager. I never actually heard about this term, but anyway, so it's kind of the thing. How do you, talking about that specific, this format, which I think you were really, really good and really well perceived by us as well as a reference. How is your process to create an infographic? It requires lots of study. I think it's a challenge to structure the whole ideas into an image. How this came to you? How do you do it? It's easier now than before. Can you share a bit of us?
So first thing before I talk about the infographics is you need to find a format that is relevant for you and that is easy for you as well. So if you are good on video, go on video. If you are good at carousel design, you can do that as well. Infographics, I'm good at it. Why? Because I've been doing that for a long time. In 2014, I was no, even before 2009, something like that. I had the baccalaureate for my high school. It's an exam that we have in France, and to pass it, I was doing infographics on little one-pagers, like one about history, one about mathematics, and this is just how my brain works. Like I need to see it visually on paper in order to really understand it. So the process that I have, it's not something like A, B, C, D, you know, it's not like a step-by-step. First I write, then I send to designer. It's not like that. So I do all the design myself, and most of the time I start from the design and then I add the text. It's weird, but it's just how my brain visualizes. It's first with the design and then I will add the text like a designer, because I'm a designer, so that's the way my brain works. And then you have other type of infographics, like let's take for example the table comparison. You have two columns. On the left you put let's say growth marketing, and on the right you put content marketing. And then you have different rows, and you compare the information. This one is less about design. It's more about being analytical and finding what information to write exactly that will summarize the whole point. You see? So you have to be brief and to pinpoint the specific information that you need to share about. And this can take time when you are starting. But now it takes me like less than 1 hour to create an infographic. Even a complex one, because it's just I do this every day. In my Canva, I have like 2,000 infographics. It's crazy. It's like I have like hundreds of infographics that I never posted that are in my course, in my only for me. Some of them I will post later. It's just like a lot of practice as well, obviously. So sorry, I don't have a step-by-step framework, but yeah, that's my answer.
Yeah, no, but that's great, and it's also so interesting to know a bit more about you. So like Pierre Herubel, designer, diplomat, marketer, growth marketer, content creator, LinkedIn thought leader. So there's like so many things that actually build how you think and how you actually end up creating content, right?
Yeah, actually, this is a concept that everyone should look at. It's skill stacking. So basically, I give you a small anecdote. Before doing infographics, I was already doing designs. I was doing like design for sales deck, ads, anything like that. So many things. And I thought LinkedIn and graphic design are two different skills. I really separated them. I thought, no, I cannot merge. It's different. It's not the same people, extra. And then the day I merged it, within like 3 months, I got 15,000 followers in 3 months. So you see, this growth really came from identifying the skill stack. So what you should do when you are listening to this podcast is, after the podcast, for example, you can list all the skills that you have in your stack and see how you can combine them. And then at the end, you have a unique skill stack plus your personality and also your soft skills. So maybe you are very analytical, maybe you are very good at storytelling. Combine all of this, you shake it, and then you have like your strong identity, your personal monopoly that you can reuse for probably the rest of your life or the rest of your career. It's possible as an employee, as a business owner, as a creator. Everyone should do this.
Good. And I think it's something that the modern world also requires a bit of us, right? To be a bit more generalist and then know different like skills and combine them to be the less mechanical as you can be and more human. So it's about lots of stuff. Talking about infographic, but also changing the subject. There's one infographic that we created. I did, and it performed really well, which was how do you discover if you are a funneler or not? So a funneler is someone who believes a lot in the funnel. Well, it can be the marketing funnel or the sales funnel. So that was like a funnel, and that was like, yes, I do believe, and there was an arrow going to a block, and then I do believe only on only on the sales one, and then I don't believe in any kind of funnel. So that was pretty much the idea. So now talking about funnels, how do you see the marketing funnel? Do you see actually that is it linear, or first of all, if you see as different things, the marketing funnel or the marketing process and the sales funnel, and how exactly do you perceive the buying journey in a content stage?
I think as marketers, we try to make something rational out of the buying journey, because it's our job. So we have to put it inside an Excel, or maybe we'll use a Lemlist or another tool to send emails, and we will have, okay, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, you see? But actually it's not like that at all for any industry. So it's not about forgetting about funnels, but it's more about trying our best to identify the triggers and the steps in the buying journey. So for example, I don't use the tofu, mofu, bofu funnel. Why? Because some people, they discover me with something that is really specific, really technical, like about why you should not track MQL, you should track revenue pipeline instead, with something like this, with like specific details. And then they start following me and they say, oh, he lives in Thailand, sounds cool, and then they follow, you see. So this doesn't really matter from the funnel side. But what matters is to identify the customer buying journey for at least you analyze like 10, 20 different clients, and you see what are the patterns, and make it pragmatic, because we are here to generate revenue and cash. We are not here for MQLs or anything like that. So it's really about identifying the triggers. So what make them think like, okay, I want to know more. Okay, I'm ready to talk with them. Okay, I'm ready to buy. Okay, I'm ready to buy more. Okay, I'm ready to expand, buy the next product, and so on. Do a lot of customer survey, and try your best to identify patterns and identify the buying checklists. Forget for a minute about the funnels and so on, and you focus more on the audience, and you will see that your funnel is very different from how they actually want to buy. It's really different most of the time, and it's not aligned actually, because the seller wants to sell as fast as possible, and the buyer wants to take the least risk. They don't want to take any risk, so that's why it's not aligned. But obviously it's easier to say as a solopreneur, because I don't have any employee or anything, so there is no risk for me anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I heard some people already saying, "Oh, I just use the funnel because it's just easier, right? It's easier to explain. It's easier for me to explain to a founder, and people know about the funnel. So let's just create top, middle, and bottom of funnel content, right?" But like you said, people do not buy like that. They're not going to respect how you want them to buy. So you cannot like build it with that in mind. You have to just create content that is relevant, and they are going to, like, I always give my example when I'm buying marketing Martech, right? The first thing that I do is I log into a website before almost even knowing, like, I know maybe on a high level, like, okay, like Clay is like a data enrichment tool, right? But I don't know, like, what are the features, what's the difference between them and the other tools. I go immediately to the pricing page. That's my process, because I want to know, like, I educate myself on the pricing page, and I look at it and say, does it fit my budget? If it doesn't fit my budget, I'm not going to learn about that tool, right? So I don't follow like the whole pattern of educating myself about the thing, right? And I'm just one person. Of course, I'm not, but every person is different, right? So I imagine there are lots of all different ways of how a journey can be, right?
Yeah. The only question here is, how did you initially know about Clay? You see, that's like the if you want the simplest way to structure your content, you do authority content and then sales enablement content. Authority content is like, you want top of mind awareness. So the day Gabriel needs an email sender tool, he will think about Clay. That's the role of authority first content. And sales enablement is, on the pricing page, we will put the right content with the right case study, and this is the framework. And I do a bit the same as you. Is the pricing page it's not only about the price, it's about having kind of a frame of how much it costs. Because if you arrive and you see it's $10 per month, you already know that it will not fix a giant problem, and that it will just be a quick help. But if you arrive and it's like 1,500, you already know that you will need a lot of onboarding, education, setup. So it's more like the frame. The pricing will frame the way you see the tool as well.
Yeah, that's interesting, because you're speaking about authority, right? And how to build that authority, and wanted to really also connect with something you're really good at, which is positioning yourself on LinkedIn, and not sure if you do that for your customers to actually help the executives to position themselves, with social selling, thought leadership, how to use, like those like corporate influencers, almost as the tools to build that authority.
Honestly, what I've been talking about since the beginning of the podcast is really about that, like the positioning statement, the messaging, and so on. So it's really this strategy. Then you need a lot of discipline, a lot of consistency to always push the same messages. And also something that I didn't mention is you need to have unique insights. If you share the same commodity as everyone else, there is no way you will become an authority. Imagine tomorrow there is a book that says the 9 trends about B2B marketing. Trend number 1, it's how you should do social media. Okay, it's so broad and it's been seen so many times everywhere. There is no way I will buy this book. It's not possible. But if it's a point of view that I've never seen before, and maybe the point of view it's something specific about videos or about any other thing, here it's unique, it's fresh, I've not seen it before, so I will follow the big idea, what we call the big idea, and the point of view. For example, Simon Sinek, he got famous with Start with the Why. You also got someone who got famous with the true 100 loyal friends, some concept like that. You take a problem or a topic and you put a unique perspective and point of view on it. This will build your authority, because if you say the same as anyone else, you can say it as long as you want. So I don't care. I can find the same info on Google or ChatGPT now. And by the way, my concept is authority first content. I am even renaming the course this way and so on, because it's sticky. I think this concept is sticky. I released the video on YouTube. It got 35,000 views. For YouTube, it's good for a new channel, you see. And people really like this concept. They understand it quickly. The name is not so good, honestly, authority first content, okay. But it's just sticky and people understand the concept. So that's my point of view, and I'm going to talk about it over and over and over.
And do you think that this authority first, it's a more adapted way to position yourself on this modern world that everything changed? So, for instance, if in 6 months from now, or if in 1 year, everything kind of changes a bit, it's not a problem, because they're gonna trust you, and no matter where you're going, you can guide your audience. So you're not basing yourself on something like, oh, I'm really good on that. No, I'm really good. Come with me, and based on how the world's gonna change, I'm gonna always give. So I think it makes sense, because we never know how things gonna be like in a couple of years, right? So
yeah, honestly, you need to be strategic about the topic you are choosing. If you are choosing a topic, let's say on a newspaper, not the news online, but the paper, you know that this industry is decreasing in terms of growth. So you have to be strategic about what topic I want to be positioned on for the next 10 years, obviously. The example I give is so obvious, but you can do an analysis on Statista, Google Trends, SEMrush, check the growth of the keywords, the research, and so on. And if you think, okay, this is a good topic, I want to focus on this because it has a great future ahead, and also I really love it, you can choose this topic, and as you say, keep publishing on this topic and don't change. Even if there is a new bubble, a new trend. For example, in January, it was this year, I think January 2024, I had the opportunity, it was last year, 2023, I had the opportunity to take the AI trend. I did a post on GPT Plus that got 6.7 million views on LinkedIn. So I was like, wow, if I take this direction, in 1 year I have 400,000 followers on AI, and I'm going to be the AI guy, or one of them at least. But I thought, I don't want to do this. I want to keep doing marketing and content marketing because I love it. I'm playing long term. I'm not saying AI is not long term, but content marketing is my topic. I chose it. I respect my choice, and I will continue publishing about that. Imagine tomorrow you see one of my posts about something totally different.
And NFT is the new thing.
Yes, imagine.
Well, NFT and metaverse are definitely two bets that didn't work well as people thought they would.
I don't know, like
very-
NFTs. I mean, there's a use to it. Maybe there's the use case. It's not the best use case possible, right?
For
But
investing, because that's I think that was the hype, right? Investing on digital art.
yeah, in digital art, right?
Mm.
I don't know.
You can I check on Google. It's called the Gartner Hype Cycle.
Yeah,
It's or hype cycle for emerging trends, emerging tech. This is so good. You have a slope like this, like it's really high. A lot of people say, "Oh, it's the next new thing," and then it drops. And like 2 months after, no one talk about it. And then step by step, you find real use cases like in banking, government, for example, blockchain. A lot of banks are using blockchain and Web3 right now, but we are not talking about it because it's infrastructure. It's not so interesting to talk about right now. It's not like a monkey on a coin or something like that. So
yeah.
you can, a lot of tech are following this hype cycle. It's quite normal actually.
Yeah, Google Glasses, for example, right? They are like people are factories are using them for employees to see with augmented reality, and there's a very nice use case, but not maybe for you to look at a person, maybe to look at David and see all his social trends when I'm meeting him in the street, right?
Yes, I was deeply believing in virtual reality in 2014. I was in a big telecommunication company, and I did the launch for a virtual reality product. I was a big believer, working on 1 year on this project, but then virtual reality didn't really become a thing, honestly. Like the 3D glasses in cinema, you remember?
Yeah.
The blue and red. You had this
Yeah.
in Brazil. We had this in
Yeah.
France.
Yeah.
I remember when I was young, you have like this dinosaurs magazine that it comes with
Oh,
glass
yeah.
to see like in 3D.
You need to find
Yeah.
one. This is collector.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is in the 80s. That's very 80s.
I was also a huge believer of the VR. I don't know if I told you that, Gabriel, but I submit a project in 2013 or 12 to be the
During the hype.
first during the hype on Rio, and then I'm from Rio. Gabriel is from São Paulo, and the Olympic Games would be in Rio in 2016. So I submit the project of Lei Rouanet, and it was approved of 500,000 reais.
Really?
I didn't get the money, right? I was allowed to go to companies and try to, how that's a law here in Brazil but that's not the point. But the point was the for Rio to be the first VR official guide from Brazil for during the Olympic Games. So that was the idea, and I thought, oh, it's gonna be amazing. We're gonna
Good
have like
idea.
all the tourists, but well, nothing worked. The
Dude,
project
you would be a
worked, the
millionaire
technology-
if you follow that.
Yeah. I'll be the VR guy, and I'll be alone on my bubble.
Yeah. No, just kidding. All right.
Last-
So,
One last
oh,
question to
okay.
Pierre.
Pierre,
Is
do you
it-
have 5 more minutes?
Yeah.
Just to be mindful about your time.
It's just one fast question, quick question as well. Do you think B2B is also a trend or not?
What do you mean? No,
I mean, like the B2B. I mean, in this content, the B2B creators, the influencers. Like,
okay.
we hear like in the podcast about B2B. Do you also think it sound like a hype, or do you think it's actually something that's gonna long?
I think it's not. So when you ask is B2B a trend, I thought, what the whole
Not the model of business.
yeah, I
obviously.
understand now, but the whole world is based on B2B, and like 99% of things we don't see it. And I know some people who are really really in technical jobs. They see me, for example, posting on LinkedIn, and they think, oh, this is funny, he thinks he know the real world with the like the full scope. But I'm not talking about that because people are not interested by that. I will not talk about like complex marketing infrastructures and so on. But to answer your question is, I don't think it's a trend. Why? Because you have a delayed impact from B2C to B2B. It's around 5-6 years. Everything that happened in B2B, for example, live shopping, social selling, influencers, even ads, it starts with B2C because they have more budget, more experimentation, they test more and they test faster, and then it arrives in B2B. So from B2C to B2B, like 5 years. A bit like the same between the US and Europe. 5 to 6 years, a trend. No, it's faster, but before it was like 5 years. And what happened is mainly with COVID and with the decentralization of information. Now the information is everywhere. It's online, obviously. So people, they really buy this way because they buy it this way in B2C. They do their own research, then they go to an e-commerce store, they open like 20 tabs to compare the different things. So they get used to buying this way. And then step by step, they start buying the same way in B2B, listening to podcasts, opening 10 tabs to compare different pricing pages, instead of going to an event or calling a sales rep. You see the comparison before after. So this is a long-term trend because it's the way we are buying. Now, of course, if there is I don't want this, but if one day internet stops working, all of this will disappear. You see what I mean? But I don't expect it to be like that, and I don't hope so. But really, it's the way we buy now. So.
All right. Well, that's an interesting way for us to close. Thank you so much for meeting with us. This was a great conversation. I think, our audience in Brazil, they look up to you, and it will be interesting for this to be, I'm not sure if it's the first, but one of the first times that you have been speaking in a live in a podcast for the audience in Brazil. So thank you so much. Do you have any closing remarks?
No, I wanted to say hello to all the Brazilian friends.
Nice. All right. This will be on the trailer for the launch of the episode.
Okay. I will visit Brazil one day during the carnival, maybe, or I think it's a huge country, so there are so many things to see that we don't know about, but I really want to visit this country. I will one day.
It is really good. It's a good place to have fun. That's
okay.
my definition.
Nice.
Yeah. and since we don't want to have fun, we want to work with B2B. Both me and David, we got away from Brazil.
Exactly.
Okay. But you go back for holidays, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Because Brazil forced you to have fun, even when you don't want to have fun. So
you need to focus. You need to stay focused.
Yeah. Well, that's my point of view, at least.
Yes,
it's a bit polemic. But.
All right. So, Pierre, how people can find you on LinkedIn and your other channels?
My name is Pierre Herubel, so Herubel, and my website is my name, actually, pierreherubel.com, and YouTube as well, and newsletter on Substack.
All right, so that's easy. So check Pierre out on all his channels, and follow B2B Insiders on LinkedIn and Instagram, Gabriel Barboza with a Z. Here's David Costa Lima with me, and we are creating content on LinkedIn every day and now on Instagram as well. Thank you so much for listening, and see you next time.
Thank you. Bye.